For this tutorial, the only external program used is SimBrief, which you can get for free and use it through their website, or with their plugin that allows you to have SimBrief on the in-game EFB. Log in, and on the left side, click on New Flight. Here is where we input our departure, our destination, and the type of aircraft we are flying. Today we are flying from Haikou Milan International Airport to Hong Kong International. So let's input the departure and arrival accordingly. Then we pick our aircraft and then the airframe or variant. We can also pick the desired runway and modify any other parameters for the flight plan. Then click on Generate Flight, and we are ready to jump in the plane. On the plane's tablet, we go to Dashboard, and click on the SimBrief button on the top right corner. That should sync the data we just generated from SimBrief. Then we go to the Payload tab, and we also click on the SimBrief button, then click on Apply Load, then choose Instant. We then go to the Takeoff tab and click on Sync, then click Calculate, and lastly send to FMGS. We now move to the Flight Management Computer or FMGC, and click on the top left button to initialize. Then we click on Perf, and then click Confirm to Data. That will import the takeoff values for V1, VR, and V2. We then click on the Next Phase button until we reach the approach page. And here is where we are going to enter the METAR information for the destination airport, which is located on the Dashboard tab on the plane's tablet. Let's take a look at the METAR and learn how to extract the info we need. The first item is the QNH, and it's displayed with the letter Q or the letter A followed by 4 numbers. In this case is 1011. To enter the value in the FMC, just type it with the physical keys, and then click the correspondent button next to the item. Next is the temperature, and this one is recognized by 2 numbers, then a /, and then 2 numbers. We only take the first 2 numbers, which is the temperature in Celsius. So we input 26 degrees. For the mag wind, the number should be followed by the letters KT. The first 3 numbers is the direction, and the last 2 are the wind speed. We separate the 2 with a /, so we enter 220/08. Sometimes we see the letters VRBL, that means variable wind, and in that case we input 0 for the mag. For the baro, we take it from the approach plate on the bottom part where it says Cat 1, and in this case is 230. You can also get the baro from the 80s given by ATC. Next, we click on Fuel Pred, and we are going to gather info from the Payload tab. We are going to take the first 4 numbers from the ZFW and split them with a dot. Then put a /, and then type in the percentage seen on the right, so the whole value in this case is 13.27/27.4. Sometimes it will say entry data out of range, and just by clicking the button for the correspondent line for the ZFW a couple of times, will force enter the correct value automatically. In this case the numbers when pressed do not match, but that is a bug, so don't worry, just press the button if you get that error. Next we click on the button for flight plan, and click on the line for the destination airport, and here we will choose the arrival runway, and the approach fixes and transitions. We can choose any of the options available, and then after choosing, we click on Insert. And then using the arrows we are going to scroll through the entire flight plan and look for discontinuities. And if we find one, we hit the Clear button until we see the word CLR displayed, and then we click on the Line button for the discontinuity, and that will erase it. We must do this with all discontinuities for both the arrival and departure sections of the flight plan. Then we scroll all the way to the beginning of the flight plan and click on the button to the left of the departure airport. Then introduce the departing runway and pick a departure procedure and transition, and then click Insert. One more time we look for discontinuities and we clear them. Now we move into the Autopilot panel, and we start by inputting the QNH. And we can get that from the dashboard on our tablet, in this case is 10009. And we can change that by turning the knob next to it. Then we can check our cruising altitude on the tablet or the flight plan, and for this flight is 20,700 feet. We use the knob to set the altitude, clicking on the outer knob to switch the increments from 1,000 to 100 feet. Now we are ready for takeoff. Let's release the parking brake in full throttle. We can see the visual cue with a purple triangle indicating when to rotate. Once we have positive rate of climb, we are going to bring the landing gear up and retract the flaps. We then engage the autopilot. And then we set the throttle to the CL position. Now the plane will follow the flight plan path and climb at a steady rate on its own. The dot beside the altitude indicates that the command to change altitude is active. If you don't see it, click on the knob until you do, and then the plane should be climbing. On the display, we can see if the throttle is on the right setting. The plane is actively climbing and following the navigation tab. We can also see the purple triangle that shows the target speed. Now we wait, and once we get closer to 10,000 feet, whenever we see the QNH blinking, we push the knob and set it to STD or standard mode. It's now blinking, so let's push the QNH knob. Done. Now we wait until we reach our cruising altitude. Once the plane is leveled off, we take a look at tour flight plan and look for our top of descent. On the flight plan, we can see our current waypoint AGTEL, and since we are 4 nautical miles from the top of descent, we must start descending now. As a rule of thumb, we should always start descending a couple of miles before the top of descent. Then we set our final target altitude. I usually set the final altitude to 2,500 feet above the runway, and that allows me to catch the ILS comfortably. Once that is set, we push the altitude knob to get the dot, and then we verify that we are descending. If we press the knob a few times and the dot does not show, but you see the plane descending, it's just a bug. We can see our altitude decreasing. Here we see the plane leveling off at 11,000 feet instead of going all the way to 2,500 feet as we set it. That is because the aircraft will now follow the altitude restrictions for each waypoint. Now we are under 5,000 feet. At this point we turn on the LS button, or you can do it later. When we are closer to final, we also turn on the approach button. Once we get closer to the airport, we change the QNH to the one at the destination, and we get that info from the tablet. In this case, is 1011. Once we turn to final, we activate the AP2, which will make the aircraft descent and touch down on its own. Now all we have left is to lower the landing gear, which we do 3 to 5 miles from the runway. Then we apply first notch of flaps, and apply more flaps as we reduce speed. The plane will even touch down on its own, but I recommend you disconnect the autopilot before touchdown, land it manually, and be ready to activate the reverse thrust as soon as you touch down. For the purpose of showing the automated landing, I did not disconnect the autopilot, so there was no flare.
50, 40, 30, 20. Retard. 10, 5. Retard.
I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Give a like and follow.